Aldo Camarena and Ashley McKay, both a couple in the kitchen and in life, which is very exciting. We're here at Standard Time, which is part restaurant, part music venue, part coffee shop, part record shop. It's outstanding. We're going to take you on a tour after this, but thank you so much for joining me. We actually kind of met, quote unquote, during the pandemic. I interviewed you for At the Pass, which was just a fascinating journey in your cooking lives, and you've done so much in the interim, so I'm so thrilled to have you on the show. Thank you so much. And also, this residency that you have here, Plates number 5, I believe, is, wow, I can't wait to delve in. So first of all, tell the people a little bit about your background, where you've been cooking. You have great fine dining experience and music venues. So if you can just say a few places that you've worked in the past before you got here.
Before this, we were at Little Geary, which was really fun, getting to
Shout
make
out.
our own menus.
Friends of the pod.
Run the kitchen. And then before that, I was at Enigma in Yorkville, and then was it
Michelin, by the way.
Yeah, it was I was there right before they got their star, so it was really fun. Very interesting place to work. And then before that, I was at Azar in Ossington for a bit, very, very short stint there, but that was fun, working with fire and Middle Eastern cuisine. And then Giulietta, that was the big one. I was there for
also Michelin.
3 years. Yeah, on the list. Love it. And then I think a bunch of other little spots.
Oh, yeah, Antyllia.
Antyllia was great, first real kitchen experience. Got to work with Chef Julie, who was incredible.
I think you're missing a very important part. Is that funny enough about this residency we're doing here is we actually met down the street.
We met at Parallel when we worked together there.
Get out. How long ago was that?
That was 6 years ago.
6 years ago, yeah.
So you were on the line? I did not know this. Please tell as much as you're comfortable telling.
Yeah, so
On a public podcast.
we started off with a bit of a faux pas. They would say don't date your coworkers. And
Of course.
It's funny enough. I had briefly met Ashley because one of our the sous chef there at the time, his girlfriend was Ashley's friend, and then one day he asked me hey man, this group of girls are gonna leave, my girlfriend, I wanted to stick around, can you go and hang out with them? And I run out, and I think I meet someone completely different. Turns out to be this girl, and Ashley's with them. And then we briefly meet, and then it's hey, I'm looking for a job in the kitchen. It's oh, you should come to Parallel, and I'm yeah, definitely do it. That's what it's work together, I didn't think she was gonna take the job. Fast forward a month later, I hear that she's gonna start, and I'm all right, everyone, just calm down. I know a girl's joining the team. Just don't try to flirt out with her. Leave her alone. Let's be professional here. And then sure enough, she starts, and a week later we're dating. Yeah, so that's that part's pretty funny to me.
That's amazing. So Geary really is full circle for you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's ever since then, I think pretty quickly Ashley and I kind of liked each other's work ethic. So it was really easy to. I think I always made the joke that if she had been bad in the kitchen, or if I had been bad in the kitchen, this would not have worked at all.
Yeah, it would have been very hard to continue a romantic relationship if the professional relationship was just butting heads all the time, or if I was wow, you really suck at this.
Yeah. If we were, for example, to talk about what my experience in the kitchen has been, I think there's a very, very distinct point in my career, which is when I met Ashley. I was working in really, really great places like Campiano and other locations that I really liked. I worked at Origin for a little bit, but when I really started pushing was when I met Ashley. I think she was someone I was really competitive with. I'm oh man, she's more organized than me. She writes better lists. She sometimes preps faster than me, and I'm oh, it's not that. I cannot let that fly.
So a good competition.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think from after Parallel, that's when you started going to a lot of cool places as well. I did a first stint at Paris, and then Ashley was there for a bit as well. From there, you went to Azar, right? Giulietta first, yeah.
Wow.
While she was at Giulietta, I was at Quetzal. I was there for 2 years. After Quetzal, I went to Brivana for about a year.
Also Michelin.
Also Michelin. I wanted to really for Quetzal, I wanted to see how, someone could
Also
translate
Michelin.
something I want.
Just FYI, the talent here is unbelievable. Just normally Michelin to me is whatever, but I think in terms of your experience, has to be noted.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, Aldo, go on.
Yeah, I think like both these decisions were like, I think Ashley took the first leap. She went to Julieta, and I was just like, no way, she's gonna like leave me in the dust, right? So I'm like, I need to go and like find something good. And I ended up at Quetzal. I've always wanted to do Mexican food in Canada, and back in the day before Julio and Kate started doing their thing in Toronto, I didn't imagine that anyone would ever do to do it here. It didn't seem like there was an interest or a market for like, a bit of a refined, if you want to really call it refined, because you don't really need to refine Latin American, but like more, I don't know, adequate price point Latin American food. I think that for a long time, I imagined people just wanted tacos and they wanted something. So I would never say anything negative about these things, but there are things that you can dive deeper, you can explore things. And when Julio, Kate, Graf and Gamma, and all these people like started building a place like Quetzal, it was funny because I had just come back from like Oaxaca, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna start, finding a way to make this happen. And the chef of Parallel at the time was like, hey, so have you heard about this place Quetzal? I'm like, Quetzal, what's that? And then, I eventually find my way there, and Steve Molnar is a chef, and I'm like, okay, so we have someone who is not Mexican doing this. I want to see what that looks like. And I go in, and one of the first things I try is like their seafood cocktail, and I'm like, that tastes like home, So when I see that happen, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna see how they're doing this, because it was important. I mean, like no one had really like brought mole. No one had really brought like these things. I mean, people had tried, and to some extent, they would have like an idea of that. The fresh nixtamal, which, I think one of the first things that Ashley and I did together was make tortillas.
Yeah.
Was really fascinating to me. And then, after 2 years of that, I had heard a lot about this, like the Benihana place. And it was like, back then, like almost nobody knew what that was. They were like, oh yeah, Benihana, or like, oh, it's like sushi, and it was like, no, this is like Kiyokeseki. It's like a very, very cool, seasonal menu that like rotates like every 2 months. I want to see what someone representing their culture and that like, intensity and that amount of intention would look like. So my time at Benihana was like very interesting, because I'm like seeing things that are foreign to me, and I'm like looking at it from the perspective of like my menu. Like I've never seen a restaurant like Benihana before in my life. I think I always tell people that like when I started working there, it was like climbing up a mountain to see the full mountain range. I didn't realize how far fine dining could get until I started working there. I'd seen photos on Instagram of other places doing like interesting things, but the depth, the narratives, I want to understand that for ourselves, for Latin American culture. There were things I had only dreamt of, and I had no idea how to execute them. So going to Benihana, I was just like, wow, like this is someone who's really representing their cuisine on the world stage. And then after that, around, I think when we were at Quetzal, we started talking about XOLO. We started talking about like doing a pop-up. We do this at Little Geary. It was like all happening at the same time. I think for the last like 2 years, we've kind of been working, 3 years, we've been working like 3 jobs at the same time, between pop-ups and, this DJing thing that we started doing like last year or 2 years ago now.
As if they don't do enough now, they're DJing as well. I mean, we need 17 hours to record all processes. So first, let's delve into XOLO, your pop-up concept. What kind of cuisine? What can people expect? I mean, the dining space is unbelievable.
It kind of started during the pandemic. We had lots of time to think and try to figure out like what we were going to do moving forward.
It's scary.
Very scary time. But like we were just kind of like, let's do a pop-up. Everyone's doing pop-ups. And so what would our food look like? And like what would we want to eat? What would we want to see? And so it was really interesting to kind of like take this idea of like Latin American migration and make food that would come up here, like take classic ideas and like classic foods and work through the lens of like this migratory experience, and things that you would like really miss.
I think a lot of it, what that was is like there was this angst, because back then the Toronto scene wasn't the same as it is now, right? Like now you have like places like the Pastorcito makes amazing tacos. You have places like obviously Goose has been like big, but you also have like these smaller places that have like been popping up. You have La Mexicana that's been, I think, the oldest Mexican restaurant in Toronto, and like they've been around for like 20 years. But now you have a Mexican spot opening everywhere. You know, you have tortas, you have tacos, etc. Like that is something that we didn't quite have to the same degree back then. In my time as a migrant in Canada, like I think one of the first things that like really shook me was the first time that we and my family starts like saying like, okay, let's cook a meal. We go and we try to find the best tortillas that you can find on the market, and they were kind of gross. They were not very edible, and the angst of not having to have your staple food was like a big part of what we wanted to represent. Was this like mourning or like longing for something that felt like home. At the same time, I understood that if we did something Latin American here, there would have to be some compromise that is not necessarily bad. It's like adapting to the space. So, you know, like the chilies here are never going to taste the same. The corn might not be the same. And I mean, we can import things from like Oaxaca or whatever, but I think we wanted to explore using the materials from here to really channel that kind of vision.
And to kind of make it like poppy too, like the pop culture like version of the food, and just like really fun, right?
We actually use the term XOLO because we always like the dogs. It's the kind of like the guide that takes souls into the underworld in Mesoamerican cultures. But also, if this is XOLO, it's similar to Cholo, which I spent some time growing up in East LA, and like you know, I remember hanging out with my cousins like behind like the windows, just like looking like all the lowriders go by and people with really nice bikes and stuff, and like, oh, man, that's so cool. Like, you know, top button up, ball, you know, like the socks all the way up or whatever. Like that in the 90s was like, I thought, man, like that's really cool. I think that's also why my parents didn't want to stay in LA. I think they saw my eyes light up a little bit too much of that stuff, and they're like, yeah, maybe let's take them back to Mexico for a bit. But you know, a lot of its inspiration is actually coming from like East LA, and it's also coming from Mexico, and it's also coming from Ecuador. It's I think if we were to use a term for what the style is it's similar to like fresquechismo, which is an East LA like pop art, like mixed with like indigenous art, meets like a little bit of street culture kind of thing. It was very like youthful. It was a very like I think before we really reached maturity in what we're doing, XOLO was kind of like a let's do this, but like a little bit of punk, a little bit of cumbia, a little bit of like hip hop, you know, and we just wanted the food to look almost like a caricature of itself. So our tacos, you know, like were like bright green with like bright orange and like all these colors that would pop. And like for us, that was like super important because I wanted people to have the experience of like an overdrive's Latin America, you know. At the same time, we were also diving really deep. I think we did research into like 120 different recipes of tamales and dozens of recipes of moles and so many recipes for corn, just grinding corn for tortillas. You know, we're looking at the time when we started this, I was in the mixed tamal, department of Kensal. I was like figuring out how to like make that work. We went to Mexico. We talked to like traditional growers and, you know, traditional cooks and Laurencia and like I mean, about that was like a person who's like, hey, you better be like doing it this way, or like I'll be really upset. And I'm like, I don't think she's gonna know anyways, but I'm always worried that one day she'll try my food and like, you didn't do what I told you. You know, so like there's like respect to all these like different branches, but to consolidate it, yeah, XOLO, the underworld dog, Cholo, the street culture in the East LA, and Cholo in the Andean cultures also means to have a trace of the indigenous, right? So we always wanted to make sure we're representing kind of all of it, like the migrant culture, the diaspora, the traditional cultures, and then also like the influences that come from, you know, Europe, from Africa, from Asia, are all going to be present in the XOLOs.
And I'm sure people are already fans and have already been to Little Geary when you were there, but if you haven't been, it's a very small space. I'm sure the kitchen is even smaller. So what you were able to express and put out in that space would be very different than something like this, I would imagine.
Yeah. I mean, like I think we were lucky, and then also not so lucky in some regards in the limitations of that space. But I think, for example, Ashley's list writing and organization really came to play in that.
Yeah, we really developed like good management of like products in that space. I feel like like you had to always kind of have enough of everything in a very small space and make it work. And like working in very tight environments because we were always kind of like butt to butt the whole time. But it was nice. We learned to work very well together in that space, which was nice.
And how has the menu developed since then?
So when we
And the
started,
concept.
I think we were stretching ourselves a bit thin. I think like with 100, I think that our first menu had
We had like 3 tamales.
3 tamales. It was originally
Wow.
gonna be like 5, which no one needs to be eating 5 tamales in one sitting. I think that came from like us really caring about what this, representing as much of this this tamale culture as possible. Because yeah, I think Yuri de Gortari was like one of our first influences. He's this anthropologist, or he was this anthropologist, rest in peace, who was also like focusing cuisine, and he did this like I forget the name of his show, but he was basically like storing and like sharing all this information. You have Rafael Mier, like from the Antyllia, is like one of our heroes because he also like records like different uses of corn across the world, not just Mexico. He's been to Italy and like visited people growing like heirloom corn and kind of developing these things. So we were just a little too ambitious at first, considering it's only 2 of us. For most of the time, it tends to be 2 of us, but oftentimes we do have a lot of friends who help us out.
We've definitely also gotten better at figuring out a menu that we can just do by ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's something that's like executable very well. Because we pushed it very hard the first time and almost to a breaking point, I think, because it was like during the pandemic, so we were supposed to have like a sit-down service. We wrote like a tasting menu, and then it switched to takeout like at the last minute. So we had to create all of these like 10 dishes that had to happen all at the same time for people to
I think
pick
that's
up.
part of our success, though.
It worked though. It worked. We like put them out in little pizza boxes, and they were really cute. And it was really fun to like see all the pictures of everyone like opening up their pizza box, like eating the food. But it was definitely tough to put all that food out at once.
Especially in the limited space. Now you have pizza boxes and you have takeout containers, and that they don't stack the same. It's different. So adapting to that was like the first challenge, and that first challenge actually was what drove us to keep on doing things that are hard. I think if it had been too comfortable, we probably would not have pushed us this hard.
Yeah.
And a lot of the items aren't like they're handheld and they're not transferable, or they don't hold up after 20 minutes of being in a box, which is a particular challenge of particular cuisines and of dishes and of ingredients. So you really were up against it, I feel.
I think one thing that made us kind of sad is that like the specifically with the tamales, like we were using like aromatics in them. And the idea was that they would walk down the room and they would make the room start smelling like banana leaf, like, this beautiful Peruvian chocolate or cacao that we were like grinding ourselves, like the corn that we spent so much time, like, and then they were like, it's going to go on a takeout box now. That's amazing. That's, like, I think every chef out there who had to put some food out during a pandemic went through this pain of like, that's in a box now.
But it's been really nice to like see the growth of XOLO and then seeing all our food on plates, like real plates, making real dishes and bringing them out to guests and having them like eat them at a table it's been really fun.
And how many does the dining room seat?
Here right now, I think we can see 30,
60?
60, really?
I think
I don't know.
so. When you're doing 2 turns, I would imagine.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's quite a bit of food to put out while everything else is going on. And you're also DJing, which we have to get to. It's so exciting.
Yeah, so connecting again with like all of these things that apply to food also apply to the music as well. I think there's like this saying, I can't quote exactly who said this first, but it's like, tell me what you eat and I'll tell you where you're from. With Latin American music, it's very much the same. I think all music, but with Latin American music, which I'm most familiar with, you hear the instruments that are being used. If you hear marimba, you're thinking coast. You hear like the guido, and you like know like the multiple places where guidos were like developed and the way they were developed. Some people are using pan pipes, and this is like more Andean. You have like certain kind of like keyboard sounds, and you're like Argentina, or that's Tecno Cumbia from Mexico. And we really tied ourselves to cumbia a lot because it's a very migrant genre. It's like it has roots in Africa, it has roots in indigenous culture, it has roots in like things like flamenco, tango, waltz. All these things kind of come together in the Americas, and I think people like everywhere listen to salsa or reggaeton and all these other things, but cumbia was like one of the first widely spread genres. before salsa existed, cumbia was already thriving, you know, and before it was even called salsa, precisely. But once we like realized that we like this, you know, we're working at Little Geary, and people were like, hey, you should just do it, just start DJing, and
Because I was already collecting records for a while, kind of before we started at Geary. Like that's why we were going there a bunch, was because like we collected records, and then like we started there, and then you just get this like fever where you're like, oh, now I need like 100 of these. And I just like keep going to the record shops and like. Like just from digging through so many like pieces, you really start to like curate what you like, and it was really fun to do that. And they were kind of like, well, you guys have so many records, like just have to do it, just do it. And they really pushed us to.
Funny enough,
do that.
When I started really buying records is one day our friend and DJ Ref Reza comes to our house, and we're supposed to be doing some like tours or whatever, but we end up like just going on this like almost like a very long night of like talking about anthropology and music and food, and you know, I was testing out some dishes for a pop-up I was doing, and like I'm like, hey man, eat this, and he's like, oh man, like what about this like cumbia thing, like tell me more about it. And then we like start talking about it for so long, and I'm like, you know what, I'm about to go to Mexico, so when I come back I'm gonna bring this guy some records and he's gonna play them, as what I thought. So we come back with like probably like 40 really crazy like cumbia records, and I'm like, all right, so like do we sell them to Ref? Like how does this work? Now how do we get him to play it? He's like, so you're gonna play them, right? I'm like, what? Like I'm afraid to touch a turntable. You know, back then I wasn't really big in that scene. So then I'm like, all right, maybe I could do this. And the staff at Little Geary also like pushed us to try this. There was this guy named Chico, and he's like a percussionist. He's like, oh yeah, you know, we should do this thing. And I'm like, cool, but like I've never done this. Like I'm probably gonna fail at this. Like, it's okay. If you have like the 2-second gap between songs, I don't care. So with all that push, we eventually started doing this. But from the beginning, I think XOLO always had a tie to like music. It was always going to be music, but we just didn't know how to execute that. We thought we were going to make a playlist, and that playlist is going to play on the sound system or something. But
Yeah, like you were always talking about making dishes and like curating like the dish to hit tables, like when certain songs were playing. And this was like early on, and we're kind of like
before the pop-up.
Before everything, it was kind of
Wow.
like, how do we make this happen? And like we're starting to get there. It's hard to like personally DJ and then like cook at the same time. So we have other people who
I think
do
most
these
people would
events.
agree with you.
Yeah.
We have other like really amazing people come in and like who get the vibe, who understand what we're trying to do, and like make it happen. And it's a lot of fun to see it.
We were actually
progress
lucky
in this
to
way.
make it happen once, and that was with Ola. And it was amazing because she picked like all the songs. Oh, you know, we're like, hey, we're not gonna tell you how to do your job. You just here's the concept, run with it, you know, and we just want you to do it like the way that you would do it. And we're like listening to this music as we're cooking, and I think like that might have also affected the flavor. I think it made us just like
we were like
happy,
dancing in
you
the
know,
back.
like,
It was so much fun.
just happy to see her just like take this concept and run with it. And we're like, yeah, this is what it should be. Is like to make it kind of like a a united concept where you have all the cultural elements, and I think like some Latin American spots do it. They play boleros or like ranchera, norteño, whatever as they're eating, and I think that actually helps the food be delivered in a better way. And I think if we can do this in a curated way, it could be really, really interesting. And yeah, we had some like because it's Cinco de Mayo is like the combination of French and Mexican history. So she was doing some like French and and Latin American kind of like flavors that day on the sound system, and it was really, really great. I think once seeing that one work so well in terms of the unison between the two, really inspires us to continue to try to do this more.
And so tomorrow you're going to be cooking and DJing, not at the same time.
I mean, I think we might try it. Yeah.
I might try. I might have to speak out early and jump on.
So what we're gonna do is tomorrow we're spending quite a few people for dinner. Ourselves and our friend Renelle Zubair, who we've also interviewed.
Yeah. Shout out, friend of the pod, Renault.
She's been helping us with a lot of these things. She actually worked with us at Little Geary as well. So she's gonna help us run the kitchen because we definitely can't do both and then run to the DJ booth. And then we're gonna send Ashley out first to DJ. Along, like I think Ola opens the night, then Ashley takes over after Ola. But the kitchen's still to be, we're gonna be putting out our last dishes and closing it up, and the idea is that people can still have a little bit of flavor in their mouth when the music starts going on. So
That's incredible.
It's really,
And-
really fun.
Any music in the kitchen while you're cooking, or is it strictly?
always.
Oh,
Yeah. Like during prep time, we always have music blasting. Like during dinner service right now, because of like the plates themes, they make playlists. So they have it going on the nice sound system during dinner service, but we have like our little like Bluetooth speaker in the back during prep time, just like going. Sounds horrible, but it's good. It's fun.
It's fun until we have like a set coming up where we have the DJ and like we're like trying to like listen to all the things we're gonna play, so we listen to like the same 20 songs over and over again to see like does that really fit together? Like, you know, maybe it's something I do, but I've definitely driven some of our staff crazy in the past when we do these things.
Especially like in the beginning when you had a much smaller record collection. There was like one, I think it was that one you were talking about when they did this event with Chico. Aldo had a much smaller record collection at this time, and like we just listened to those like 10 records over and over again, but like through the Bluetooth speaker in the kitchen while we were prepping, and then like I would hear him practicing at home, and then the night came and I was like, yeah, this is so sick, and then I was like, I never want to hear those songs again. I never want to hear those songs again. You know, honestly, it took probably like a year before I was like, okay, I'm ready to hear that one song.
I think we listened to probably 200 hours of Betisprado at least.
Oh my god, yeah, that and like the Roots of Chicha
It's a
originally.
Chicha out, yeah. Oh man. I mean, it's
So
a really
much.
handy comp.
It's really good.
Yeah.
It's a very good comp.
It was actually, speaking of Chicha, I think one of our favorite things is in exploring music and food is like the inevitable connection that's going to happen when you go and travel to these places to try the food. You're also going to start understanding that a lot of this music is about food. Like El Aguajal is a song by Los Chapis, I think, originally, and it's about a fruit from the Amazon that we got to taste, and we're like, oh, that's what that means. I thought it was about avocados or something, you know? There's a song that I think I like to always like think about my our suppliers is La Zenaida. And it's a cumbia about this lady who wakes up in the morning to go sell her beautiful red fruit to people. And I think of Rebecca Neandro from Dragon Aegis Farm, and I'm like, yeah, she's kind of like this Zenaida, you know? She's going out and like distributing all these beautiful bits of produce, especially her squash, which right now it's amazing.
So good.
But yeah, a lot of the music relates to food. A lot of the food relates to music, and all these things they contain a trace of the DNA that makes the Latin identity. You know, the background being a little bit of like African, a little bit of indigenous, a little bit of Asian. This all shows, and like of course you're European. This all shows up in the end product, which for us is what we're trying to make sure they're always present in showing that in the food that we're in.
So you mentioned the squash. Tell me a little bit about your current menu and how that's evolving, or how it's evolved from when you were first starting here.
So the thing with this event is, well, we have an announcement to make, and I don't know if you want to do that now or later.
And yeah,
Okay. So
you heard it here first.
yeah, we actually haven't really been public about this yet, but
Okay.
just recently we signed a lease. We are working with we're working with this beautiful company who's like really working on like supporting young emerging chefs and professionals in the industry, and yeah, we're about to open our own restaurant finally, brick and mortar.
Oh my God.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh my
I'm very thankful, very excited.
Wow. I'm so happy for you.
And then that all connects to this in a almost like, I don't want to say sad, I think it's a happy way. With what we're doing here with XOLO, it's a Day of the Dead event. It's to mourn the life of our loved ones, you know, and it's I think we thought it was the most fitting way to kind of make this announcement is we are kind of going to have to say goodbye to XOLO in a sort of way. Because I think we all expect that once you know in a restaurant, a lot of your attention goes towards that. Now, I don't know if we're saying goodbye to XOLO forever, but Day of the Dead is a day when this little dog, you know, that has helped people cross the bridge to Bitlan, in this case, the XOLO, is gonna do one last trip to say, like, you know, thank you for everything, visit their loved ones or whatever, and then maybe you will not see XOLO again for some time. It makes me really sad to say that. Like, I think I've been mourning this for a long time, but I don't know. It's time for us to really like focus on this. And I think what I've realized over the last few years is that we've not only executed everything we wanted out of XOLO, we've also kind of become XOLO in a way. Like it's taken up on, a lot of our household right now looks like something out of this concept.
Oh, it clearly was a testing ground for this next venture and really honing in on what's important to you, the message you want to put out, which if you're not following them on social media, I mean, your social media presence is just so incredible. It's so informative and educational and fun. And Ashley, your photos are, you could be doing, I don't know how you're both so talented in so many fields, but your photos are incredible. And I learned so much just from that, never mind talking to you guys in person. So that's something that I think even further adds to what you guys are doing. Congratulations, that is so thrilling. And to be opening a restaurant at this time is an undertaking like no other, as I have been banging on to Chris and the audience about for so long. I've never seen anything like this in my entire career, this industry, what everyone is going through, the closures, the landscape, the challenges in terms of staffing and labor and cost and ingredient costs and just everything. It's, I think, the hardest time in history ever to be doing this. So it really is quite a testament to you guys to be launching something new at this time. And I want to ask you a gazillion questions about it, but I'll try to remain calm and you can tell me in your own time and when you're ready to announce further details. But ending your time here, of course, now you're going to be going into the next phase where you're going to be doing everything that you've been doing for everyone else. And so what are some things that you are finding along the way in terms of what you're really enjoying and things that you're finding challenging?
So I think we can answer this answering your previous question as well, is the menu as XOLO right now. This is kind of like a final form of what XOLO is a combination of like the different stages of what we've done with XOLO. I think we started off with this, again, like this Basquachismo, like pop art thing. We have dishes for that. We were thankful to this one sauce that I think got us quite a bit of like media attention, was the Arhuasacaca, which is a Venezuelan sauce. So it's a recipe that I originally got from this I think he was like a Cuban taco maker in Miami. It's a Venezuelan sauce, and he's using it in a Mexican restaurant. So we use this instead of like guacamole. It was a whole thing. But this sauce became like something that would visit our menus frequently. And this sauce is typically served with these things called pequeños. These are these little like canned wrapped cheese sticks and like puff pastry. They're fried. They're delicious.
The mozzarella stick of your dreams. It's so good.
It's so good. And we wanted to like kind of like start off with something not so out there, something very traditional. We didn't really do much to change that recipe. We just wanted to be like, hey, here's like something that we've been giving you for so long. Here's the real form, like the honest presentation of it. The second course that we have, as the way we're coursing it, is this like seafood tower. And this seafood tower is like a Mexican style seafood tower, but it's with Ecuadorian flavors.
Mm-hmm. So is another plan.
For that one, we're kind of just trying to represent like a little bit of our roots. Also, just it's something that's so enjoyable in a space like this. This really suits the vibe. It's we're serving like Argentinian shrimp, yellowfin tuna, and Hokkaido scalloped that are being served in like this multi-tiered, almost like a ring mold type thing. But the flavors is where it's interesting. So the base sauce is like a leche de tigre, which is from Ecuadorian origins. This is very similar to what Ashley's grandma used to make for like shrimp cocktail. And you can talk about this dish more. Actually, you make most of the components now.
I made most of it, yeah. But it's like you say it really well when you describe it at tables. I've seen you drop it off. It's kind of like Ecuadorians like to season their ceviche like a hot dog. So it has ketchup and mustard.
No disrespect, it's actually
it's
really
so good. It's so good. Like it was
ketchup and yellow mustard.
Yellow mustard, like French's. Like it's not like good mustard. It's very bright yellow, but it's really really good. And when we were down there, like the first ceviche we had, like we didn't realize that they were so into the mustard until we saw this lady just like fucking squeeze the mustard in there. It shows up at our table. We're like, why is there mustard in this?
Well, I mean, I had done some research on this, and I'm like, no, you got to try the mustard.
And it was so good. It's really good. So that was our kind of like nod to the Ecuadorian ceviche with like the ketchup and mustard. It's like a tomato-based sauce with oranges and the shrimp blitzed in. So it's like nice, fresh umami. And then we have like this mariscara sauce, which is kind of
It's like more of like a
traditional
Mexican
thing.
sauce. Yeah, that one we make with like chilies, lime, a little bit like Worcestershire sauce. Am I saying that right? Worcestershire sauce. The English sauce, as we call it in Spanish. And a few other elements. I'll give away the recipe if anyone wants it. Honestly, I think everyone should have this in their pantry. And then, since we're working with Rebecca from Dragon Acres, she makes this beautiful squash, and we like our appreciation for her produce is so big that we don't want to waste even the skins. So we figured out that if you use the skins, you dehydrate them, then you fry them. You can basically mimic the flavor of peanuts without having peanuts. And so we make this peanut-free salsa matcha that we just drizzle on it, and serve a little bit of avocado, even though, the avocado thing, but we're just doing a measured amount, and then some Ecuadorian chifles, but also corn tostada. So it's a combination of like all of the seafood that we love, and we think that a place like this should have like a seafood cocktail. So it's probably one of our most popular dishes.
Yeah, definitely. And it's perfect. Like you get a bottle of wine, you sit down with a friend because it's fairly large. Like it's like that big. So you share it. I've seen people take them down by themselves though, and I'm like, that is impressive.
It's
very impressive. It's a lot of seafood.
Then our third course is like kind of harkening back to the origins of XOLO and like these like street foodie kind of things. We do like a cheese crust that we serve with Japanese soy mushrooms. Like we're basically doing like a ponzu and togarashi like mushroom thing, and then we're putting that on tostada because we just love that. I always thought that like a cool place should have like hand fused like a tostada. You just like lift it and see it. Seared cheese crust. We top that with some. We also use some like morita mayo and some like what's called a ají criollo or different kinds. It has different names, but it's something I really fell in love with in the Amazon. It exists everywhere, but like that's where I really was like, oh, this is so good. It's like red chilies, tedui rocoto or habanero, with red onion, and that's all pickled in like lime juice. And it's just, the bite is so good. That's the one I menu tested the most. I was definitely like, I gotta make sure it's good. I think I ate that for like a week.
Yeah, we eat a lot of that at home before starting here. We're kind of like, we'll test it and then make sure it's good and make it perfectly.
I gotta practice, make sure I can make 20 of these, Then after that, we have the rice. The rice is actually the first time we made that at Geary. That was us kind of saying like, hey, like we first started cooking on Geary, and this is a dish that actually is served at Parallel, but that's a dish that we like adapted to like Mexican street food mixed with like Middle Eastern street food. So we make this like chorizo recipe that we grandfathered from someone in like one of my neighborhoods growing up, who made this really nice bright red, spicy, smoky, salty, acidic chorizo, which I'm like, everyone has like their own like authentic. For me, that was the authentic red chorizo. So we did that, and we served it with like escabeche and like this labne that we served with. Because it's meant to be a combination of both things. We only have pickles with the rice dish. You would also often have like a labne or tahini sauce. So what we did is we took a labne and we mixed it with like the taco toppings that you would normally have. So white onion, a little bit of cilantro, and some lime. So it's kind of meant to be like a combination of both cultures in a way that's kind of like reminds you of both, but also delivers something different. And then lastly, we have, or for the savory part, we have the lamb. And the lamb is kind of like more in the direction of like, we started getting serious with XOLO, we wanted to make a dish that was a bit more formidable and felt like felt like something you would have in an actual sit-down restaurant. So it's kind of like, the path is to kind of tell a story. And with the lamb, we use this mole negro, and that's because we are so lucky to like secure this residency for Dia de Muertos and for this announcement. We want to do a dish that's normally served on this special occasion, which is mole negro made with like some like 20 ingredients, and they're all very carefully like treated separately and then also together to make this like super slow cooked, super rich, a little bit bitter chocolatey mole that we serve with plantain, which plantain is one of the ingredients in the mole itself. But for us, it was like, I always tell the story, like I think if it were up to me, I would always add more sweetness to a mole. That's just my palate, but I also don't think that should happen to every single mole. So we wanted to serve it with something kind of sweet. We have this like beautiful lamb cooked over Japanese charcoal, and we call this one the black sheep. Now, for Day of the Dead, oftentimes it's like the only people who visit, the people we remember, right? So we wanted to do like a little ofrenda to those who we forget, because they're maybe kind of, wacky people in our families, which I think there's a lot of those in mine personally. And then we finished this with a dessert that Ashley was the one to make this physical. We kind of came up with the idea together, but she really just like took this.
Yeah, you're kind of like, just make this. And I was like, oh, okay, sure. But it's a suspiro, which is this like dessert from Lima. And it's they make it with like manjar, which is like a caramelized like milk caramel. But we do that with dulce de leche and put some miso in there. So it's kind of like really sweet, really savory.
It's like an 8-hour or 6-hour caramelization. How long is it?
4 hours.
4 hours.
4 hours. But you can just make a lot of that and kind of keep it on hand. That, and then it's topped with this really nice meringue with orange blossom in it, which is kind of like that really fun flavor for Day of the Dead stuff. Like the has it's like orange and orange blossom flavor. So then I make this other cookie that's just like, it's a little sugar cookie, but with orange and orange blossom flavor again, and then like make them really crispy and crunchy and sprinkle that on top, and you get this like really nice like cold custard on the bottom, warm meringue because we torch it, and then like the crispy crunchy cookies, and it's so good. It's like the perfect sweet and savory, and I could eat probably like 10 of them every day. But
and it's got like a really sweet story.
Like that.
So we call it the last breath because suspiro means like a sigh you would let out. Specifically, the story goes back to a poet and his wife. His wife used to make desserts. The poet used to be, wax poetic about them. So she makes him this dessert, and he's like, oh, that's like, you know what that is like? That's like when you let out a sigh when the person you're in love with passes you by, And we thought that, like they're obviously long dead now, so we thought it'd be nice to tell their story a little bit, And Ashley did precisely that. She made a version of this dish that was so good. I'm like, yeah, that is like a sigh that you would let out when someone that you're really in love with passes you by. Maybe it's just food right there, but but we thought that just like to finish the meal is to combine this concept of this pan de muerto, which I think every like Latin American chef or Day of the Dead tries to find a way to incorporate that, and we did a combination of having that present in the dish, but also having something that connected to like couples who are in love who've now have departed. That was a nice way to end the meal, the last breath of the meal.
And for those not in studio, we're all drooling over our microphone.
We sometimes get a little bit too intense about the descriptions on our food, and
No,
I promise
never.
that although we are very talkative about these things, first and foremost, we always make sure that our food is delicious. While there are all these like, concepts and all these like things that might seem like distractions, they really only help to contribute to the end product. I think I'm the proudest now about what we've done than ever before, and I think that's something we're grateful to be. It's to say like, hey, we are getting better each day, and we are pushing ourselves to work more on how to make the narrative make sense, but also make the ingredients we're working with be way more suppliers than ever before. We have features that we run here using things that I've never seen in Canada, and I never thought I would see in Canada. Things that after our trip to Ecuador and Peru, we were like, oh, man, that was really cool. I'd love to work with that one day. I guess we'll have to come back to Ecuador or Peru. And there's people, small producers growing things like that here. And we're lucky that we're the first ones they reach out to. So it's been really, really amazing to have the support of small producers in the community. One thing we're really proud of is using, not in the current menu right now, but we're going to be working with Ken from Ken's Garlic a lot. And if you don't know about Ken's Garlic, he's the reason that we're going to have, or that we already have Canadian garlic in Canadian supermarkets. He's been bringing back varietals for ages. He's very careful with genetic selection of all these small crops. And right now he's focusing on corn. And this guy knows so much. Rebecca, she's incredible. She's been growing creative people for years now, and she's working with some of the best chefs in this country right now, and working with all these small producers. Our supplier from actually, we normally try to keep this one a secret, but honestly, Vicky, Victoria Naya. She runs this place called Vita Market in Kensington, previously Salamanca. One of the oldest Latin American distributors here in Toronto. She gets us some super rare things, and like, she'll be like, "Hey, like, I can get you more stuff if you want." You know, she's so helpful. And like, just the people that we work with, there's many more, and I apologize, I don't have them all, and on the top of my head right now, but some of the things that we have the privilege to work with, really just make us proud to be able to do that, to work in whatever small regard. Like, sometimes we get a kilo of corn and we're like, wow, this is very special, and again, that's all I got this year, and it's just like, we'll make the best out of that. We'll get like small chilies that are a very specific breed, and we'll be like, okay, cool, that's a challenge, let's pickle them, let's like make them stretch.
All those beans.
The beans
We gave, where did you get those seeds? Like a seed swap? Sometime in the spring, we gave them to Rebecca to grow.
We actually got them. I got those
back
from Ken's Garlic, and he's like they did a seed swap, and like these are indigenous beans from here in Canada, from I think it's the Iroquois, and we got them from Ken to like, and I mean, like, I gave them to Rebecca. I'm like, hey, like, these are kind of cool. You should probably try to propagate these. They're local indigenous foods from Canada, and honestly, like, my dream is to continue going. Like, if I can work with people like Tanya Brand, her community's got incredible, local foods. But if I could also, just work with anyone who's out there trying to push on this, I think that's great, especially if it's like stuff that's locally grown and produced here. But the reality is, with like winter and whatnot, we will have to, also reach out to whoever's already bringing things over,
Yeah.
So the people that help us with this are really just the producers, the suppliers, the farmers. So we're really excited to have a brick and mortar specifically for that, because right now it's really dodgy. Like, sometimes I'm like, hey man, like, can you like sell me some corn? And like, some guy shows up in a car, and like, I go into an alley and we do like the exchange, and it's a little bit strange. But with with the brick and mortar, I think we're able to really push on like sourcing important, and I think most likely I haven't had any of these things be not delicious. It's always there's always like not only just the rewarding aspect of the fact that you're doing something good, but it's also the rewarding fact that you taste new things and they're like, wow, that's cool. Like those Rebecca had say beautiful eggplants. Oh, those were so yummy.
The pickling ingredients?
Thai frog fingers.
Yeah, they're the best name. They were so funny. I love them.
Actually, and I like did like this like soy pickle with them. It's so yummy. It's like a marinade. But yeah, like, I think the evolution has been basically we have all of the gratitude in the world towards what XOLO has been, and everyone who's come out to support XOLO, and it's been fantastic. But there was like something a little bit unripe or juvenile, I would say, about the way that we're doing XOLO, and it is important that we embrace that our youthful energy is going to continue to be a part of all of this, but that we've definitely matured as chefs. We've found our way in a sort of way.
And also like pinpointed kind of what we want to be doing with the food that we're making. So it'd be really nice to like take this fully fleshed out idea now and put it into this fully fleshed out restaurant, and really just kind of see what we can do. I'm very excited to get going with that and share it with everyone who's been like supporting us for so long and be people.
We're very excited about the layout. We can't really go into too many details right now, but we're trying to make this place a bit more communal, and I think it's right now we live in an era where like people need more spaces where they can socialize with each other and get to know each other, and I think especially with like younger generations and people that are coming out of the pandemic in their developmental years, like I think socializing and seeing people and interacting with people is like such an important thing that a lot of people kind of missed out on for a few years, especially here in Ontario, where we've had such long lockdowns.
Yeah.
So our focus is largely in creating a space where people can like, socialize and share these experiences. And while I think the chef's counter is really good, what we're trying to hopefully do is make people kind of face each other a bit more as well. Not just in like segregated tables, but like in more of a communal setting, which we'll get into more later once we know that we can actually build it properly. Yeah. We're very early stages, by the way. It's like the restaurant. We'll give more details on that as we go. But the restaurant right now, we just finished Ruffins, and we're officially we're just finishing the Ruffins now. We're going to start to we've taped everything down, and it looks like everything's in place. But with restaurants, there's always like delays. There's always things that come around. But it looks like our vision, which we're grateful for, is that we found people that are helping us not only just make it like a restaurant that we get hired to work at, is that we help to build this restaurant, the layout for the kitchen, the layout for the front. It's going to have a lot of us in it, and also a lot of this it's tunnel vision. They've worked on some incredible build-outs before. For example, one of their most recent works is this beautiful space called Slice of Life. Though she also mentioned in your open and close last week, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's one of the challenges is we spent way too long trying to figure out the name for our spot, and we've landed on Antyllia. The space is going to be not just Latin American. We really wanted to focus on representing the fact that we are in this land. We're on Turtle Island, we're in Antyllia, we're in like all these places that are all connected by the name America. Which, while that's a good a good way to kind of talk about it, I think that Antyllia is a precursor to that. Whereas old charted maps imagined a land that was the opposite of tile, and that would be the Americas, right? Before anyone arrived, before anyone actually set foot here, they're like, there's probably something out there, other than just dragons. So I think what we're trying to do is before anyone had any preconceived notion of what the Americas was, people didn't have any expectations, right? So we want to represent what these lands are, from a different points of perspective, of living in North America, of having backgrounds in Central America, South America. We will effort to do that in a way that is respectful, but also we have to be honest and see that we're doing this also from a point of a Latin American perspective and a Latin American experience. So working with local products to combine these efforts and to combine these things, talk about migration. We have so many cultures here in Toronto that they all should be represented and I think at the table. But our general idea is going to be looking at Canada, looking at Toronto specifically through a Latin American lens, and it's going to be exciting to do that. We've been already doing that for so long, but
yeah, it's really interesting now because especially since XOLO started, it wasn't hard to find Latin American products here, but it was a little difficult. But now you can get so many ingredients. It's insane. We're definitely very spoiled in that regard. Yeah. But it's really fun to kind of see what we can do with that. I think it'll be really interesting.
And I think people are more knowledgeable, and they've traveled more, or they've read more, and so it's like Thai restaurants 25 years ago, there was just Thai restaurants. There was no regional. Yeah. You didn't know about northern Thailand versus southern Thailand. I think in the Italian realm, maybe in Spain, in terms of restaurants and cuisines, the public was a little bit more aware, but it's only in recent years that the public has been more in tune with regional dishes and in whatever country. Even Australia, I think. We kind of know more of the regions and terroir, especially when it comes to wine.
It's been interesting because even just see what pop-ups are doing now, a lot of them are regional and they're very specific. For example, Ren has Ren and her partner are doing this pop-up called Neon City, which is this Hong Kong, but a specific region of Hong Kong, and their food is so individual to all these other pop-ups as well. So it's fun to just get to work with those guys regularly and do collaborations with people like that, and knowing that there are so many people interested in exploring these avenues and these opportunities it's so, yeah, as Ashley said, it's so privileged to live in a city that has that. Mm-hmm. And that has it in a way that's budding and it's fresh, and people are it was a dark time after the pandemic where okay, some people are trying, but what's going to happen after when all these people have left, when there's like a shortage in staff, a shortage in maybe the culture kind of like took a hit. But now it seems like my brother last night actually said something really interesting, is that it feels like after a forest fire, you think it's all gone, but then all these like things start sprouting from all these things, all these opportunities, all these new spaces. And I think even with the economic shift, we look back at the 2007, 2008 economic shift that happened. That also sprouted what we know now to be like some of the biggest, spaces and cultural like identity of Toronto, and like in terms of its dining. So I see that with this that's happening right now, it's really tough for a lot of people, and it's going to take a lot of adaptation and a lot of like compromise. But I see that what is happening between the young chefs that are emerging, the people who are trying new concepts, people who've already been established and they're opening new spots. I think that what we're going to get is probably something so exciting that I can't even like paint a picture of it in my head. I just, you look away for 1 second, and as you said, like hundreds of restaurants open, and they all have like, they're all standing out in their own way. Hopefully all of them.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see kind of like what happens out of this very tough climate, because there's so many young people like pushing and trying to create a scene, because it was missing for so long. I feel like everyone, like, especially now, you either like can't afford to go out or there's nowhere that you want to go. So hopefully we get to like rise out of the forest fire ashes and build a really cool dining scene. It's really exciting to be a part of that, because Toronto's a really amazing city, and hopefully it can continue to be that way, and not just like get like all the cool people leaving because it's very expensive. So hopefully we can continue to make it a space worth being in and not just expensive.
And honestly, I think a lot of it is, once again, I'm going to thank Standard Time and, communities and places like this. I want to thank places like Doc's Green Door Lounge, places that are hosting these events, especially for young and emerging, chefs. I think that these people have realized that there is an importance to embracing these cultures, to embracing this like up and coming grassroots type of thing, because it's only through that we start to actually get new ideas out there. We give opportunities to people who like, and the food industry, sometimes it can be tough to, or back in the day, especially it was like hard for young people of like not European backgrounds to like try to present their cuisine as something worth looking at. And now it seems like I see such a diversity of things. That's really nice to see that embraced by the community, to see people like, like I've got a favorite Ethiopian restaurant, I've got a favorite, even within that, like people are talking about Eritrean cuisine now, and it's not just like one thing, it's like, I want to go try this like Cambodian pop-up or something. It's like, Cambodian food, that's crazy, I've never had that. But it's all coming out of people who are all kind of working towards something that they believe in. And every time that one of these things goes well, it tells other people, you should try this, and we've met so many young chefs that like they ask us like, pop-ups, man, I don't know if I could ever do them. I'm like, well, you could totally do it. You should do it. You should go out there and try it, and it's just nice to see that places are also contributing, whatever, in whichever way they can, to this conversation. And the people who go out to support these pop-ups are also, fueling something deeper, something that I think doesn't quite have like a very firm shape. And I think that can be challenging, but I think it'll ultimately be the most rewarding thing that the city has done, is support young and emerging artists. We have this in the music scene. We have this, our actors, our local talent in that regard. We have a lot of like visual artists, and right now it's nice to see that chefs are also getting a chance at that. So.
And also the blend of all of that, excuse me, like having the music venue, the hybrid spaces of coffee and lounging and listening and meeting and eating and drinking and all of that. I think post-pandemic becomes such a magnet for people. Like you were saying, everyone was locked away for so long, and so now everyone just wants to be out and socialize and dance and drink and eat, and to be able to do it in one space like this is incredible. And to have your background and your intense knowledge and passion for history and ingredients and music, and bringing all of that basically onto the plate, into the environment, is so inspiring and enthralling. And I'm just so thrilled that you found a space that's so amazing, and to also have followed you throughout your journey, to watch you guys grow from working for other people to this incredible pop-up concept. And what a mark you've made. I mean, I'm not the only one that has been just following you wherever you go. It's the whole city that has been coming out to support you, and now to be doing this at soon to be opening doors somewhere in Toronto. We'll have details to you as soon as possible. It's just, I'm just so thrilled for you. Thank you so much for sharing part of your story, and I'm thinking that for season 2 you have to come back and tell us what opening the restaurant was like.
Yeah, I think
We'll do a part 2.
something that we definitely need to do and take the time to do is thank you specifically. I think you were the first one to kind of pick us up and give us like the attention and the time with the at the pass. That opened up a lot of doors for us as well. Is your support, and you're actually thoughtfully curated questions, which, although you were asking these same questions to so many people, I think reading those also kind of gives you an idea of what everyone else is doing, and I think we've always wanted to one day like make this announcement and have it be you, deep down.
So this is perfect.
I wish we had some champagne. We'll get some champagne and do this
Yeah.
in a separate post, but just congratulations. Thank you
Thank you.
so much. I'm just absolutely thrilled.